Welcome, my friends, to the Beggars and Brawlers podcast. This is episode 68, recorded Tuesday, the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. And I have Morgan Cole back with us for another episode for an author hangout where we just kind of casually chat about what's going on in our author lives. We ended up talking about writing blocks, accidental successes, and giving ourselves permission to follow our muse, plus some updates on what we're working on and what we're reading and listening to right now. Okay, so Morgan, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Totally. It was really fun to chat with you and to find out more about what went into writing Marilia. It's crazy that it was a 10-year project, but how are things going for you recently?
Well, they're going pretty well. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, hitting that balance of creative stuff and the regular work life.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty lucky. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I have a job in government, so it's not as I went to law school while I was writing these books, and
Oh, wow.
I was a lot of jobs where I could not have time to work on, writing, editing, any sort of creative stuff. Like they were so many hours, and I just really was scared of falling into that trap.
Yeah.
But I found one where it's more of it's not like, I mean, it's a full-time job or sometimes more than a full-time job, but it's not crazy. So I'm really glad for that. So I feel very blessed, and every day, I appreciate that I was able to make that happen.
Totally. That's always been in my mind, is like, I either want a job that's really fulfilling, like getting paid to write my books, or I want a job that leaves me enough time and like mental energy to write the books that I want to on the side. Like, I don't know if you just know the story about Brandon Sanderson, but before he was published, he was working as a night clerk at a hotel because it was super slow and all night he could just write his books. That if you can't just get paid to write your books, the next best thing is something that like gives you enough space to do it, which is that's the fruit gig for me, is that like I work really hard for 4 months and then I don't work the rest of the time. So
I guess they can't really sell them in the winter as much, can you?
No, I mean, there are probably things I could sell. Like I could be scrappy and sell Christmas trees and Halloween costumes and like blankets, and there's all kinds of things I could do, but I don't have to. And like you, for that, I feel very grateful.
And how do you grow them yourself, or do you just sell them from somewhere?
No, I buy them from the growers basically. So I know the people who own the orchards and I kind of know their growing season. And I'll like, whenever they're getting ready to harvest the next thing that I know that I can sell well, I drive out to wherever they are. It's usually thousands of miles away and buy it and then bring it back to the place where I sell, which is Western North Dakota, where they can't grow any fruit at all. And they
that's true.
Really good fruit because the grocery stores are also small and their stuff is old. So I bring the stuff that's like a couple days off the tree and they're happy and buy it, and thus do I have time in the rest of the year to write books. So yeah. So I was going through this experience. I don't know if you've had this happen to you, but I'm writing book 4 and there's
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, writing book 4 is cool. I mean, I could just be a fool in writing book 4. I did it for my last series and it wasn't selling well, and I wrote a book 4 that I thought was really good, and I was like, and no one is going to read this. And finally, ultimately, like it got published by someone else and they put it out as a box set, and I know that lots of people read it, which makes me feel good.
That's good.
At the time, I should not have written that book 4. I feel a little bit better about writing this book 4 because people are reading books 1 through 3. But thank you for that. But I ran into this thing of having, like, it's a big world. There's a lot of details, and there's one like culture that has always kind of been in the background, and they're like major players and they're like technologically advanced, but I
think I know which one they are now.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. The Salem, I forgot how to say that.
Salem Dale, you got it. Yeah. And you actually said the name right, which is not easy. Yeah, they're like mysterious and up on their mountaintops, and none of the readers know what's going on with them, and I didn't really either. And now in book 4, I'm like, oh, I need to figure out what's going on with these people because it's suddenly important to the story. and I have like more than one character who's from there, so I need to like make sure their cultural markings match. Um, but it was really interesting because unlike the beginning of the series when I was just creating things from whole cloth, I had all these little pieces and all these things that people had said and this prejudice that the other people of the world feel against these people and this magic system that exists. Like they have sort of magical technology, but I didn't know how it worked. And so I had this funny experience that I needed to go back and fill in those blanks, but it wasn't just blank, it was like more like ad libs where there were parts of the sentence and I had to put in something that didn't suck as the rest of it.
Yeah.
Have you ever have you had that happen like in the Chrysathemere or working on the other series or anything else?
Yes. So this is like, I mean, I can think of two examples, one where I succeeded and one where I have yet to succeed. And
Yeah.
so I mean, I was working on another book in the same world as the Wind and Sunlight book, not
Oh,
exactly a
cool.
sequel, but like another standalone adventure novel.
Nice.
And I just
Standalones
started
are the cool
going at
thing right
it,
now.
and I got like halfway through, and then I was like, I did not do enough world building. Like I just
Oh,
didn't.
okay. Yeah.
I had all these things, and I just threw them in, but I didn't. I think I almost need to step back. Uh, I don't want to say rewrite the whole book because like I love the characters and the dialogue, but the world building clearly that's always something I've
Yeah.
struggled with this world building, and it usually takes me the long time. And I think
Yeah.
I just jumped the gun on this one, so I probably have to walk it
Yeah.
back and really do a lot more thinking about that.
I yeah, I had the exact same thing happen to me last year. Like, so speaking of the fruit business, I always have this goal that I'm going to write more than I do during the fruit season because like the first few years I just dropped it completely and I felt like the gears were really rusty when I'd come back to it after 4 months. So last summer I was finally like, okay, I'm just going to write something. It doesn't have to be good, but like I also don't have anything to tell my newsletter subscribers during that time. So I was like, I'm going to write a serial. I'm just going to jump into it. I'm not going to plan like I normally plan and see what happens. And what happened is that very fast I was like, where are we and what's going on? And like the world was so sketchy that like I could not go forward. And after like a month of doing it, I was like, okay, the problem is not that I'm trying to write by dictation, which is new. And the problem is not that like I don't know the story or the characters. It's that like I don't know the world and I need to be a geek about the world for a while to feel like I know where I am in like time and space and culture. And after I did that, uh, which like again was me not writing during the fruit season, it was me like being a geek, then the story came really easily. So yeah, you might need to just like geek out for a while.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It sounds like the geeking doesn't come naturally.
I mean, it does. It can, depending on what the thing is. Like, I
Yeah,
really, I felt like it's hard to explain, but like certain things I love developing. Like,
yeah.
but certain other things, like I guess I got stuck because I felt like the cultures were like almost becoming too generic and like
Mm,
like oh these are like the northerners, the
yeah,
quintessential
yeah,
northerner, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And like
yeah.
I just wasn't pleased. But then
The
when I tried
frosty
to make
barbarians.
yeah the frosty barbarians, I mean they weren't quite like that, but I
Yeah,
don't know. It was all very vague and I think I'll maybe
yeah,
take that one, drop back to the drawing board, keep the characters and the plot, but
yeah.
need to the plot got stuck because the world was so underdeveloped. Like I had a part
Mm,
where I really needed to understand the world to get them to be able to proceed through this one
yeah.
kink in the plot.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we'll
That's
see what happens.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you that Queen of Wind and Sunlight is set on the same planet or world.
It's a different world from Aurelia. It's a whole different
Yeah,
area. Yeah.
yeah. But you have a book that's there, and there's so much of it that's like
Yes.
unexplored that
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah. But
interesting.
it was a different part of the world, I guess. But
Yeah,
I think I would have. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
yeah. So you're in a
Getting stuck.
corner, and you need to yeah.
It's one of my greatest
Yeah.
fears is like getting stuck. That's part of why I didn't.
Ugh.
I was even scared to publish my second Chrysathemere book because I was like, what if I get write myself into a corner? In fact, I had a thing where in the first book I actually had a typo that wrote myself into a corner. Like I said someone's age
Mm.
was something, and then later I realized it
Oh.
didn't make sense.
Oh
Or
no.
and I actually this is a guilty admission. I went back and changed the book on Amazon. Like Just that
Oh,
one word.
yeah,
Like,
no, I think you are
ugh.
fully within your rights. Like this is part of having power over our books is like if it needs a change and it's been published, like everybody who reads it from that change forward will know what's up. Like
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's like I couldn't
yeah,
have done
I
that with a traditional publisher. I'd be stuck with that
no, not at
plot
all.
hole
Like I
forever.
yeah, like the Mary Robin Cole, I don't know if you follow her, but her first book got published and they somehow left off the first line of the first chapter. Like it just
Oof,
wasn't in the published book. And they're like, yeah, we can't fix that. And so like at her signing, she writes in the first line.
that's
But
wonderful.
yeah, with Daughter of Flood and Fury, the first book in this current series, um,
uh
I won't spoil the ending, but something
Please
happened.
don't.
And it was a little bit vague whether a character survived or not. And I thought it was vague in a very pleasing way. And then
Uh-huh.
in the second book, you kind of find out whether they survive or not. And I got these reviews that were angry, like, they can't die and just come back to life. Like, this is such a huge plot hole. I'm like, no, but it should be clear from that last line. And it wasn't
Interesting.
clear. So I just rewrote that last chapter because I was like, I guess I gotta make it clearer for y'all. And so I did, and those angry reviews of book two have stopped coming in.
Well,
So
that's great. Yeah, the power to
yeah,
do that is an amazing thing. I would think if if all authors had it, maybe Game of Thrones would have an
yeah.
ending by now.
I know we could go back and just like,
Oh,
like
clearly
make
there's
Ned
something
Stark
that's not
survive
working.
because that's
Yeah,
what the series needs. It needs Ned.
yeah,
He
something.
died too soon.
I don't think anyone has ever. I think I caught my little mistake early on, so hopefully no one
Hmm.
will ever know that I. But then I had another one
Well, they
where
know
a
now.
character did these typos. Like I even had an editor,
Interesting.
and I slipped through like a character. It wasn't like a misspelling. It was just like
Yeah.
a character. I used the wrong name for one character instead of
Yeah.
another. There was two
Yeah.
characters called Claraline and Claria, and for
Oop.
somehow in my head I got them scrambled. Their names were
Oh no.
similar, so I
Yeah.
used the wrong name for the wrong character, like
Oh.
one chapter, and I was like, oh my god, how did I not see this? Like,
Yeah.
what a plot hole. I mean, not really, because I'm sure the readers would be smart enough to figure out what I meant to say, but it just was awkward. It's like
Hopefully.
embarrassing.
Yeah, I don't know. There are some readers who are like so angry at continuity errors and like I am guilty of some very bad ones. My first series, Beggar's Rebellion, I entered it in a pretty big contest, the self-published fantasy blog off.
Oh yeah,
And I ended up being a finalist. And
congrats.
the version of the book that it was in the finals, like when you submit it, you can never change it. Like you can't revise it. The one that you sent in is the one we're using all year for this year-long contest. And that one was one that I had like done some heavy revisions to, and then apparently not checked well enough because the character full on died and comes back a few chapters later as though nothing happened. And
That's
I
fine.
got so roasted for it. Like, and that's really understandable. It's a minor side character, but it's still like, wow, they just came back to life. Um, so obviously I fixed it, but I had to like, so the way that contest works is like 10 blogs all review your book if you're a finalist and they give you scores and whoever has the best aggregate score is the winner. And like there was no way, like whether the book was good or not, there was no way that I was surviving that. And I just
Oh,
had to be like, I know, I fixed it, but it doesn't matter because it's all done. So yeah.
but it's such a minor character. You think they would just? I mean,
And he wasn't even likable, like they probably wanted
yeah.
him to stay dead. That's probably what happened.
Oh well, yeah. I guess if he's one of those characters, I can understand
Yeah.
the feeling.
But yeah, I've definitely been there, and I have no shame about editing the books that have already been there. But I have recognized that we were talking before we started recording about audiobooks and producing them, and I know a cartoonist, Howard. I'm mentioning all these people from the Writing Excuses podcast, which was like fundamental to my development as a writer. But Howard Taylor, he's like, I can change my cartoons up to the point that I draw them, and then they're set in stone because I'm
Right.
never like it's too much work to draw them. I feel the same way about recording things. Is like I'll change the book, but once I like record the audiobook, that is the forever version, at least of the audio. So I
That's
think
true.
actually that change that I made to Daughter of Flood and Fury is not reflected in the audio. And I'm not going to go back and change those few lines in the audio because I want the recording to sound the same. And it's just so much more work than, like editing a few lines and uploading a new version to Amazon. So yeah,
Yeah, I literally can't change the audiobook since
right.
I'm not the
You're locked
narrator. So
in.
I'm so grateful that I caught those things before. But
Yeah.
sometimes I toy with the idea of like the first book, like I like it, but there's like
Mm.
I almost have like a sort of tinkery feeling where like I feel like I
Yeah.
could. There's a lot of exposition in the first third or so that I wish I could just like change the pacing somewhat, and
Hmm.
I feel like I guess this is because the first it's my first published book, but I feel like
Yeah.
I feel very confident and strong about two sequels. Like there's
Yeah.
almost a few little things. There's like maybe three things I could think of I might tweak, but overall I'm very happy with them. I never get this urge to tinker. But I
Yeah.
almost wish I could do like a 10-year anniversary. Like
Oh, nice. Yeah.
not that I
You
would
could
change
like
the
kickstart
plot.
a leatherbound edition, you
Yeah,
know?
but with a different, like maybe like flashback structure, like a different story structure that I want to play
Yeah.
with. I guess I could. Maybe I will. It's something I've been definitely been pondering. Like I love the story, but I wonder if there is a structurally more exciting way to tell just the first book.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% relate to that tinkery feeling because I have it on both of my book ones because that's like the gate that everyone must pass through to get to the later books that are
Exactly. Yeah.
good. Like I feel like I'm still getting better as an author. So when I write book four in a series, I'm like, this is so good. And God, book one sucks, and everyone has to read it to get here. And it like has destroyed me on both of the series that I've written. Even when I go back and read the book one, I'm like, that's not as bad as I thought it was, but it still make it better. Like that
Yeah. That's
voice
always
is
that
constantly
urge.
talking to me. Yep.
And you can maybe someday.
Yeah, in the
The
words of
special director's cut, that's what they do in the movie business.
yeah, author friend of mine, Rob J. Hayes, was like, that way lies madness. I think because he's done it, he's like, do not. Yeah, so I've
Yeah.
resisted the urge mostly, but I did edit that last line of Daughter of Flood and Fury. Yeah, but it was interesting to to kind of have that hole before I published it and be like, wow, I need to fix this, and there are only so many ways that I could fix it. And I sort of felt like I came through it with something better for having had all of those limitations. Um, so yeah, that was an interesting experience, but yeah, hopefully it doesn't happen again because it's kind of scary to get deep into a
It is
series
scary.
and be like, what if this is just broken? Actually, I have a friend who like wrote a series that is wildly popular, Emma Wong, and she stopped because she's like, my world building is too broken. I can't deal with this magic system anymore. Even though people love this book, I'm all done.
Oh yeah, no. I got to the very end, like the climax, the final, big thing, big set piece of
Wow.
my trilogy, and I realized I hated the ending. Like I hated the final the climax was bad. It was full of plot holes, and I kept writing it and
Oh,
rewriting it. And I spent a month working just rewriting that last bit, and I couldn't.
yeah.
I didn't. No matter what I tried, I didn't like it, and I realized I had like this horrible panic because my first two books are published at that point, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is literally the most
Wrap
important
it all
part of
up.
the book. This is the
Yep.
climax of the entire
Yeah.
trilogy, and it's just
Wow.
bad. Like the ideas are the I like the character arcs are there and stuff, but just like the physical scenes of things that are happening make
Mm.
no sense, and
Oh,
just it just
yeah.
doesn't feel very right. And I agonized and agonized, and then I just sat there for 3 months with writer's block, panicking because I'm like, I need to publish this book, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then somehow I watched The Lord of the Rings and something
Hmm.
clicked and I completely
Interesting.
redid the ending. Was and oh man, I was so relieved. I don't know what happened, but I just like realized like I thought it had to be one type of scene. Like I won't get into spoilers, but I had this whole thing planned out, and then I completely changed what happened and where they were and what was going on. Like totally different climactic scene, and it was like 80 million times better. And I'm so
Oh,
relieved that I just happened because I almost brought myself into a corner. The greatest fear.
yeah.
That's my greatest fear of all.
Well,
Um,
yeah, the writer's block of I know this is broken, I don't know how to fix it is awful, but
it's
I feel
horrible.
like when I've had those times when like something is really broken or revision and I finally figure it out, do you feel like you will never make that mistake again? Like that's the feeling I always have is like this was so painful to fix that I've learned my lesson.
I like to think so, but then I thought I'd learned my lesson, and then I got stuck on this new book. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess I
Hmm.
didn't learn it as well as I thought I did.
It's a different
Oh,
lesson. This one is
yeah,
not like plotting of the climax. This is I need
that's
to know my
true.
world better.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. It's
Give
a
yourself
different type.
credit. New
Yeah.
lessons. So what are you working on at the moment? If that book is like is percolating, what's on your creative palette?
It's definitely percolating, and I'm going to go back to it. Right now, I'm branching out into something not quite a book. I'm working on a mystery box, which is like it's like
Interesting.
a portable escape room. Like you get a bunch of clues, like police reports,
Hmm.
like videos,
Cool. Hmm.
just like random newspaper articles, etc. And you
Yeah.
try to find out who killed, whoever the victim was. And
Huh.
so I made this cast of characters that I
Yeah.
found that I love making characters. It's like the
Yeah.
most fun thing for me.
Uh,
And then I made a bunch of puzzles, and it's like I was doing a bunch of these over Christmas, and some of them were really good, and some of them
mhm.
I was doing them, and I was like, I could do this with a better plot. And so that
Nice. Yes.
often when I'm inspired to write, it's when I see something that I like a
Yep.
lot, but I still think there was something missing, and I like, it was close to where I wanted it to
Totally.
be, but not quite there. And that's
This
when
is
I
how it
really
would
get
be
the kick in
better.
the pants to do that. So I'm working
That's
on
cool.
making one of those, and I'll see what I can do with it. Maybe, hopefully, sell it somewhere on Amazon,
Yeah,
or yeah,
that's awesome.
and then go
Well,
back to books after that.
yeah, you need to go back to books. I mean, but that sounds really cool too. Well, definitely let me know when it's out because I have never done anything like that. I haven't even done an escape room, even though it sounds awesome.
Oh, they're very fun. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, that
But
sounds really fun to write.
somehow I love this even more because there's more like escape rooms are all about the puzzles. I
Mhm.
like some of this to have like a story in it too. So this is like a
Right.
mixture of the puzzle solving and sleuthing that you can do with your friends, but also like
Mhm.
there's a plot and like story going on. So that you
That's
have to
awesome.
find from the clues. I like it. Yeah. I just
That sounds
always
really
want to do
cool.
something creative. If I have a writer's block on a book, I'll find something else to do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, my creative urge will like switch to woodworking or something else very different if the words aren't coming, but I do my best to make the words come because this is like I'm not very good at woodworking, like I want to do it, but like yeah, this is where I've developed my talent. So yeah. That's awesome. Well, I feel like we've probably rambled at length. Hopefully this was interesting to y'all listening out there. Thanks for coming back. We'll look forward to that mystery box when it's ready. But if you didn't listen to our other episode with Morgan, he does have a book that is literally for free, the one that we've mentioned off and on, Marilia the Warlord. So there's a link to that in the show notes. You should definitely check it out because it doesn't cost any money. And I've got my own free book, which is more of a novella because I'm not as generous as he is, which is also linked in the show notes. So check those out. Morgan, you want to come back on sometime?
I'm always happy to come on.
Cool. Awesome. Well, it was really fun chatting, especially the second time and just kind of hanging out. So good luck with the mystery box. Catch up soon.
Yeah, thanks.
For more information on Levi Jacobs and his books, including the award-winning Tide Cholera Chronicles, visit www.levijacobs.com. Or for a free audiobook, only available to podcast listeners, go to www.levijacobs.com/free. Thanks for listening, and read on.